Refresh Hoover. All right, looks like we are live. Hello, everyone, again. If you've seen me a couple times today, hello once more. If you're tuning in this afternoon just now, if this is your first session of the day, welcome to day two of our overdose awareness series brought to you by the Washington Poison Center. I am very excited to introduce this next session and this next speaker. Before I do, though, let me remind you the way you're all viewing this through the Hoova platform. You're all muted, so you can verbally ask questions all you want, but we won't hear them. So please ask questions, leave comments in the chat box or the Q&A box in Hoova. You may also see a chat box built into the Zoom stream on Hoova. I'll be watching all of them. So if you post it, any of those three, I should be able to see it. And I will field those questions to our speaker when she's ready. So without further ado, we are here for Friends for Life campaign updates, and our speaker is Corey Bales. Now, since 2021, Corey has worked for, and I forgot the pronunciation, Corey. I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you,
Decetylhagi.
Decetylhagi, that was it. We just went over this, and I immediately lost it. So, Corey has worked for Decetylhagi as a copywriter and content developer, again, since 2021. Her work supports community health initiatives, leading nonprofits, voter confidence campaigns, and more. She serves as the co-creative lead on the Friends for Life fentanyl awareness and overdose prevention campaign, created in partnership with the Washington State Healthcare Authority. All right, Corey, thanks for helping me out with the pronunciation there, and I'm going to pass it on to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Alex. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. So probably just want to confirm one more time that it looks okay, but we'll get it to play from the beginning. Okay,
All
does
right.
that look good?
Yep, I see just your slide. There we go.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you. Hello and welcome, everyone. I just want to start out by saying thank you to the Washington Poison Center for having me as a presenter. This is my second year presenting at this overdose awareness series, and I'm very happy and humbled to be back. As Alex mentioned, my name is Corey and I work for DH as a director of content development. DH is a social impact agency based in Spokane and Seattle and working across our state and beyond. Our work focuses on making people's lives healthier, happier, and safer. And that's how we came to this partnership with the Washington State Healthcare Authority and the Friends for Life campaign, which I am excited to tell you more about today. So just in terms of what we're covering today, I'm going to walk through some context and background on the campaign. Friends for Life has been around for a couple of years now, and some of you may already be familiar with it, or as Alex shared with me, he's actually using it, which is really awesome to hear. But I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I'm also going to cover our recent research and how it led to updated messaging and materials. I'll talk a bit about how we worked and are continuing to work to get materials out into our priority communities. And finally, I'm going to showcase some of our partners' work across the state. Our partners are using this campaign in interesting, creative, and community-specific ways. And we want other people to see how this campaign can be used in different regions and within pretty much any budget available. There are a few things that we hope you'll take away from this presentation. The first is how important it is to include your priority audiences in all that you do. At DH, we have a sort of guiding principle. We believe that the people closest to any given problem are also closest to the solution. And by including them early and often, you create a virtuous cycle where audience members can see the effect of their input on the messaging and creative materials and are therefore more likely to trust and use those materials. The second takeaway is that tailored outreach and the right partnerships help your message get where it needs to go. This overdose crisis affects everyone. We we believe that and message that, but we know that it affects certain communities and people more than others. So, a broad outreach approach meant to reach everyone risks missing these people specifically. And finally, even with limited resources, you can bring this message and this campaign to your community to help people keep their friends, their family members, and themselves safe from overdose. So, a little bit about the Friends for Life campaign. This campaign was launched in 2022 in partnership with the Washington State Healthcare Authority. At the time that the campaign began, Washington State was seeing a dramatic increase in opioid overdoses, driven by illegal fentanyl and other adulterants in the drug supply. Rates of overdoses were rising particularly fast among young adults 18 to 25. So the campaign began in its first phase with harm reduction messaging for that audience. With the next phase of work, we shifted our attention to primary prevention for youth ages 12 to 17 and their parents and caregivers. Overall, the campaign was designed to inform people about what illegal fentanyl is, how it's transformed the drug landscape in Washington to be more unpredictable and harmful, how to help teens avoid opioids like fentanyl, how to spot and respond to an overdose, and how to get and use naloxone. With our current phase of work that I am going to be sharing with all of you today, we recognized that there was a missing middle between harm reduction for young adults using substances and primary prevention for youth who don't use substances. We also knew from our experience and from the data that certain youth and young adults were being disproportionately impacted by this issue. And so we focused most recently on what we are calling bridge messaging to reach youth and young adults at higher risk of experiencing an overdose, whether personally or as a friend, a family member, or a bystander. As we always do, we dug into the research to understand exactly who it was we needed to reach with this bridge messaging and material. For each phase of the campaign, that first phase for harm reduction, the second phase for primary prevention, this third phase for bridge messaging, we begin with a period of research. And in that phase, we take a multi-pronged approach to understanding our audience. In this particular phase of work, we looked at statewide data, including DOH's overdose death and hospitalization dashboard, the University of Washington's Addiction, Drug, and Alcohol Institute's fentanyl overdose death reports, Public Health Seattle King County data, Healthy Youth Survey results, and more. We also talked to subject matter experts like epidemiologists. We reviewed academic research and other active campaigns around this issue. And we interviewed community leaders and treatment professionals, people who are working day in and day out with the folks that we were trying to reach to better understand what they wanted and needed. All of that research led us to some key findings or conclusions about our priority audiences for bridge messaging. So the audiences that we ended up focusing on were youth and young adults who are Black, Native, from migratory farming families, who are LGBTQ+, but especially trans youth and young adults, those who are unhoused or unstably housed, those who are or have been incarcerated, and or those who have lived in foster or group home settings, and of course, people who hold more than one of those identities. We learned that substance use is frequently co-occurring with other mental and behavioral health issues exacerbated by being involved with systems, whether that's juvenile detention or prison systems, the foster or group home system, the shelter system, or another system. We learned that neither harm reduction nor prevention fully met these people's needs, and we would be serving them better by bridging the two. We heard firsthand that clinical language felt exclusionary or gatekeepery, and people would prefer us to use the language that they use to talk about themselves and the issues that they're facing. And finally, we heard that people wanted to recognize themselves in the material meant to reach them because these priority audiences are often invisibilized in society. They experience shame, or are otherwise tokenized or stereotyped in representations of themselves and in their lives. So it was important that they could really see themselves in an authentic and true way in the material. So we took all of that research and all of the insights that we drew from it, and took it to the drawing board to update our messaging for this phase of work. One key insight before I dig into the bridge messaging specifically, there's one key insight that continues to drive all the work that we do forward. And it's that all people really care about keeping their friends safe. This is one reason that this campaign focuses so heavily on the power of friendship. Both youth and young adults, whether they use substances or not, are highly motivated to keep their friends safe, more so even than they are motivated to keep themselves safe. This insight proved doubly true for youth and young adults at higher risk. A consistent source of support across these priority audiences was friends. So strong family and cultural bonds were a hallmark for some of our priority populations, but for others, they felt profoundly alone, except for their friendships. So our messaging framework throughout the campaign has centered on four things. We are looking to close knowledge gaps that exist about illegal fentanyl and the changing drug landscape here in Washington. Social norming around the importance of keeping one another safe. Offering tools and information so people can take action, whether that's having a productive conversation around illegal fentanyl and overdose prevention, or whether that's knowing how to administer naloxone, just equipping people with the tools and information that they want and need. And finally, destigmatizing what it means to carry naloxone and combat opioid overdoses. So for each phase of work, similar to how we revisit our research with each phase of work, we always revisit our messaging as well. And we audit the current messaging and look for any holes that we need to fill in order to address our priority audiences for a given phase of work. And in this case, the messaging we used in previous phases still worked. So for our sort of closing of information gap, we have this message that illegal fentanyl and other additives are making the drug supply more unpredictable and harmful. Our priority audiences in this bridge phase still needed this message. For social norming, we have the message that friends keep one another safe. Again, that message is consistent across our phases of work. And finally, our destigmatizing message that everyone, yes, everyone deserves to be safe was also consistent across our harm reduction, prevention, and bridge messaging phase. So really what we needed to do was make sure that people had the right information and tools that they needed. And in this case, we wanted to make sure that youth and young adults at higher risk of experiencing an overdose, whether personally, as a friend or family member, or as a bystander, was a safer use message. After we developed messaging, we put together early drafts of creative materials that I'll show you in the next couple slides. And then we tested those messages and materials in a number of ways. So the way that I tend to think about this or talk about this is like with each cycle of work, whether it's, sort of research, messaging, creative development, implementation, evaluation. We always sort of return back to the audiences that we're trying to reach and talk to them or show them the work that we're doing to ensure that it feels accurate, that it reflects what they've told us, and that it's something that they feel they would use in their real world. So we tested these messages by giving them to an advisory group of 6 subject matter experts working with our priority audiences to review. We also put together a youth feedback survey and collected nearly 3 dozen responses there. And then finally, we hosted in-person focus groups with youth and young adults from our priority audiences. And I will share more on that in a moment. I actually want to show you some of the material that we developed so that you can see how it evolved through the course of that message testing. So in our research phase, we spent a lot of time digging into what materials might be effective for our audiences. We heard that rack cards and brochures generally don't appeal to a younger audience, that they're sort of unlikely to read it, but that they would want some type of printed material. The people we talked to shared that youth and young adults are unlikely to read pamphlets, but like a postcard or another printed piece, short form videos and affinity items were more likely to work. So while we did learn that this youth and young adult audience is extremely online, even when they, for instance, don't have access to stable housing, they find ways to access the internet elsewhere, as in a library or a community center. But they also wanted access to low-tech resources that they could have without their parents knowing about it. Many of the youth and young adults in this priority audience, if they had parents or caregivers in the home environment, they often felt that they were worried about their phones being monitored and the type of access, like information that they were accessed being used against them. So they wanted a way to have access to printed materials that they could learn about this issue privately without parental supervision. So we created this zine. And we created an accompanying webpage, just knowing that these youth and young adults are also online. But the zine, if those of you any of you are familiar with zines, they're sort of like these DIY, this short form magazine. So it's kind of like a DIY magazine. And it's usually a combination of sort of like information and collage art. So we were very inspired by independent sort of DIY zine makers and that art format to bring this to life. As I mentioned, we hosted in-person focus groups to collect feedback on our materials. In total, we had 18 participants ranging in age from 16 to 21 with a range of lived experiences who took part. And we, in this case, had the help of a trusted community partner who we at DH have cultivated a relationship with over the course of years. And they were able to help us facilitate hands-on activities to learn what was working and what wasn't for both the messaging and the look and feel. We took what we learned and made changes to things like the order that the pages appeared in, page layouts, typesetting, content, graphics. So just to point out a few things, you'll see on the left that they left us a series of sticky notes with things that they liked and didn't like. We color coded it with sort of green for go, yellow for maybe consider changes, red being like this really needs to be different. So you'll see that there's a series of yellow and red post-it notes on the left. And then on the right, you'll see our actual content. So just to note a couple things. For instance, we heard from many of the participants that the top left paragraphs were too long and they would prefer it to be in a bullet or dot point format. So we changed that. They wanted the graph represented differently with more contrasting colors and have that be moved up to the top of the page. So we did that. On the front cover, we had a couple participants say that they wouldn't probably pick this up unless it was marked free. And so we put a little sticker on the front to indicate that this was free to grab and take with them. We also initially had many things in sort of like a handwritten font, but these youth and young adults are used to seeing things in typesetting, and so we switched around a lot of our font for it to be easier for them to read and more legible. So that's just an example of sort of the before and after of how we responded to community feedback. And the other thing that I wanted to show you is a conversation guide. So we created a peer-to-peer conversation guide. This prints out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And with some strategic cutting and folding, it becomes a small handheld booklet. Again, we put this in front of our focus groups to understand what was working and what wasn't. We wanted our youth and young adults from these audiences to feel equipped to have a realistic conversation with their friends about substance use. And based on the feedback, we changed a lot of things about this conversation guide as well. So initially, the title for the booklet was, "Are You Okay?" We heard feedback that felt combative and confrontational. And so we switched it around to be, "I'm here for you" instead. We also heard from youth and young adults that they wanted something that felt more like personal and more like a testimonial. So where this was initially in a third person perspective or point of view, we switched it into a first person point of view. As if someone who had experienced this issue firsthand was talking directly to them. So again, we made many changes to the look and feel of the conversation guide, but also to the messaging in the conversation guide to reflect the feedback that we received. We also created some other more traditional pieces like this poster that can be put up in various settings, and also a zipper pouch. So when we consider what sort of like swag or affinity items to create, we want to consider their usefulness to our audiences. And we know that many of the youth and young adults from this audience, especially those who are unhoused or unstably housed or living in foster or group home settings, are more transient than maybe their counterparts. And so they need bags to carry their stuff around. And so we created these zipper pouch bags with our logo and website. So once we'd created our materials and once we had gotten feedback from our priority audiences, we needed to come up with strategies to make sure that the right people saw our messages and got those materials in their hands. One strategy that we used for this phase of the campaign was co-designed social media videos. So up until this point, Friends for Life has not had a massive social media presence. And there are a couple reasons for that. One, when you're trying to reach youth and young adults, they're incredibly social media savvy and they can sniff out inauthenticity really easily. And so they're sort of less likely to listen to or engage with an official account. Like, so Friends for Life doesn't have an official social media account for that reason, because we fundamentally know from research that youth and young adults are unlikely to engage with an official sort of state agency social media presence like that. They view it as kind of like corny. So we've resisted doing that. And then also we know that when you have a really successful organic user-generated presence, social media presence, it takes a lot of investment and it takes a lot of sustained activity, right? You need to be posting on a regular cadence. You need to be engaging with your audience base. It's not an easy thing to do in a way that is truly successful at reaching youth and young adults. So to this point, we haven't done much with the social media landscape, even though youth and young adults certainly are online. But this time we took a new approach, and we looked to co-design social media videos with content creators from our priority audiences. And we really took a leap of faith here to generate material that felt really authentic to a social media landscape. So you'll notice when I show you the videos that there's certainly DIY. These content creators are not like professional content creators. They're just people from priority audiences with lived experiences that care a lot about this issue and spend a lot of their time on social media. So they know what's going to work and what's going to reach other folks from their communities. Just a little primer on what co-design is. It's short for cooperative design or participatory design. It's an approach to design in which members of priority audiences or other interested parties are direct collaborators in the design process. It's meant to it actively and intentionally involves people in the process. So outcomes meet their needs, so that it feels relevant to them, so that it reflects their perspective. It's a really important way that a campaign design can reach and engage priority communities. So we put out an open talent call and received several submissions, and in the end chose to work with 3 creators. Our first creator was Heaven Collins. She is based in the sort of Tacoma area, but has roots in Spokane, and again is not not a content creator by trade, but spends a lot of her time on TikTok and has lived experience with this issue and with parents who have struggled with substance misuse. Brian Gatewood Sr. Was a founder of a nonprofit that works with youth at higher risk. So he is not technically from our sort of age bracket. He's a little bit older, but he has a son, Brian Jr., who worked on this campaign, and then also reaches many other youth from our priority audience through his nonprofit Innovative Changemakers. And finally, we have Carla Duran. She is an artist and stop motion animator who just recently graduated college. And again, social media content creation is not her typical outlet, but we were very inspired by her unique art style and sensibilities. So I wanted to just share with you the content that they ended up creating. Each creator ended up making 3 videos that we then used as part of a paid social media campaign that we put on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and I believe Facebook, but across social media channels. So I'm going to play each of these for you. I'm hoping that the sound works.
Medication that quickly reverses opioid overdoses by acting as an opioid antagonist. AKA Narcan blocks and reverses dangerous effects of high opioid levels in your body.
That's when someone is overdosing, call 911 immediately. Afterwards, use Narcan. It counteracts the effects of opioids and can help revive them. Always carry Narcan in hand. It's both safe and legal. Here you go.
And then this one is my personal favorite. It draws on the very trendy get ready with me videos that you see across social media.
Everyone deserves a chance to live. Carrying Narcan is like carrying a second chance.
This is from our creator, Brian Gatewood Sr. and his son, Brian Jr.
What's up, y'all? This is naloxone. It reverses an overdose from opioids. I carry it with me because you never know what might happen.
I used to think it wasn't any of my business until my friend overdosed. Talk to your people. It could save a life.
Hey, what's up, bro?
Hey, what's up, man? Can we talk for a second?
Of course I can.
My friend's been talking about doing drugs, and I honestly don't know who I can bring this up to, and I'm really worried about him.
Hey, man, I'm glad you called me. You don't have to carry this on your own.
With Carla, she speaks both English and Spanish. So we had her create a video, a stop motion animated video in both English and Spanish. I'll play those for you. And then she also put together, again, another really popular social media style video with a collage sort of photo and video montage of her life with a naloxone message.
La naloxona es un medicamento que puede revertir una sobredosis de opioides. Viene como un atomizador nasal o inyección y bloquea los efectos de los opioides. Llévalo contigo a partir de ahora. Nunca sabes cuándo podrás salvar una vida. Naloxone is a medication that can reverse an opioid overdose. It comes as a nasal spray or injection and blocks the effects of opioids. Carry it with you from now on. You never know when you could save a life.
This is naloxone.
It's a medication that can reverse an opioid overdose, including for fentanyl. Naloxone is a small but powerful tool in saving lives. By carrying one, you can save lives too.
We were really thrilled with how those videos came out. We were really pleased with the sort of success that we had with the co-design process. We are very much considering doing that again in the future because it was such a successful strategy. The videos performed exceptionally well. Heaven's did particularly well on TikTok. Brian's performed really well on Instagram. Carla's, obviously, as Spanish language, did exceptionally well too. And so we continue to place buys with those videos, but are also looking to expand our Spanish language options and just continue to engage with creators who want to spread this message in their own unique ways across social media. It feels like it's a way that we can have a presence on social media that people from our priority audiences, youth and young adults, will actually engage with, will watch, and then will click through to our website, which we also had higher than average click-through rates. And so they were landing on our web pages, able to get some of the information available in the zine and in the conversation guide. We also, as part of our outreach strategy, partnered with community-based organizations. So DH, as an organization, as an agency, puts a high priority on maintaining relationships with community-based organizations that transcend a transactional relationship. We have been in relationship and in partnership with many community-based organizations across our state for years, where we engage them in various campaigns in order to serve as trusted message carriers in their unique geographies and in their unique communities. And we used that a strategy again for Friends for Life for this phase of work. We partnered with 4 community-based organizations who each put in a proposal to do activations that made sense for their organization, for the people that they serve, and for the ways that they reach their communities. The first organization that we partnered with is the Community Health Worker Coalition for Migrants and Refugees. They had a sort of activation called Education Through Connection. What they focused on was really training sessions. They equipped more than 150 participants with overdose prevention information and with naloxone kits. They also visited all of their local community college campuses and went into the community center spaces and the classroom spaces to provide naloxone demonstrations and information to the community college students. We also partnered with Safe Yakima Valley. They had a couple of ways that they reached out to their community members. The first was a social media campaign. So this is another way that we end up getting the word out on social media with organizations like Safe Yakima Valley that already have a large and established social media presence and audience. They will create a social media campaign with our information and get it out to their audiences. They also are very active at community events. So they were out in communities, out in schools, doing community events to spread our information. And then also, they have peer navigators who provide young people with personalized information on overdose prevention. So they have one-on-one touch points with members of our priority audience. We partnered with an organization called Black Arts Love that operates in Seattle and King County. They hosted a statewide art contest for youth and young adult artists. And the winning submissions were actually displayed in their newly opened gallery in the Seattle Central neighborhood. And finally, we partnered with Rainier Avenue Radio for community conversations. For those of you who are familiar with Rainier Avenue Radio, they have a lot of audience-driven programming. And so they hosted on-air and in-person panel discussions about illegal fentanyl, the overdose crisis, and naloxone awareness. They had discussions and workshops and expert interviews that they hosted through their radio programming. Their radio programming is hosted in multiple languages and designed to reach many diverse communities in the Seattle, King County metro area. So this was a really effective way to transcreate across language barriers to get our message to community members. And then finally, we did some organization mapping in order to understand who we should be trying to reach out to and work with. So for the first phase of work, which was harm reduction, we partnered closely with syringe service programs across the state. It was sort of a built-in network of 36 or 37 syringe service programs across the state that were networked together. So we sort of had a built-in outreach network. And for the second phase of work, which was primary prevention, we partnered very closely with ESDs, again, a statewide outreach network. But for this phase of work, because we were trying to reach a priority audience that was amalgamation of many other groups, so we were trying to reach Black youth and young adults for migratory farming families, youth and young adults who were unhoused or unstably housed, who had been incarcerated, who were LGBTQ plus or trans. There is no statewide networked organization that reaches all of those priority communities. So we did the work, the legwork of figuring out which organizations across our state would actually reach those different audiences and who we should connect with to distribute our materials. As one example, we learned about the Department of Children, Youth, and Families community facilities for juveniles who are re-entering their community after being in a juvenile detention facility. We set up a meeting there. Luckily, their leadership was very receptive to hearing about about this campaign. We set up a meeting and we were able to distribute our materials designed for this audience, the zine, the conversation guide, the pouches, the posters, etc., to their community facilities across the state. So this was one other way that we really tried to learn where we could reach our priority audiences. And this organization mapping will continue to pay off as we go into other phases of work. Okay, so for the last section of this presentation, before I open it up for questions, I really just want to put a spotlight on our partners across the state. So I'm going to be sharing with you just 3 examples of organizations who are using our campaign in ways that are tailored for their specific community at different budget price points, just to give you a sense of how other communities are using the campaign. We always love to hear about how the campaign is out in the wild, and how folks are tailoring the materials that we have and the Friends for Life campaign to make it make sense for their specific geography, for their community, and for the people that they serve. So the first spotlight is on Kitsap Public Health District. They came to us with a task. They said, you know, they had this grant. It was a $53,000 budget, which is the largest budget I'm going to show you, just to put that out there. But they had a task to use a new or existing campaign to promote opioid overdose prevention messaging with their grant. And they came to us and said, you know, we could make our own thing, but we really love Friends for Life. We love what you're doing. And we wanted to know if we could use your campaign, but just create some things specific to our health district here in Kitsap. And we said, sure, yeah, absolutely. We would love to do that. And so what we did when we worked with them was we created a custom landing page for their website that was designed with their information, but with our Friends for Life look and feel, and also some social media assets. We set up email and text alerts with campaign information. They sent it out. We helped with the information. And then they also did a presentation to the Kitsap Public Health Board so that they could secure local media coverage. And then we helped them design billboards, movie theater ads, and LCD screen ads at ferry terminals. And those ended up being really unique and popular ways to reach people as they were transiting around that area. We also partnered with Snohomish County Lead. You can see that their budget was significantly smaller. So they came to us with a budget of $500 and a task. So Snohomish Lead stands for Snohomish Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, and they provide an alternative to the criminal justice system by working directly with individuals with behavioral health issues. So they came to us and asked for resources to help their case managers provide resources to support with substance misuse prevention and mental health. So we ended up working with them to print our Friends for Life wallet cards. These wallet cards have information about how to administer. We have one set of wallet cards for how to administer nasal spray naloxone. We have another set of wallet cards for how to administer injectable naloxone, and then information about Good Samaritan laws and our website. We gave them stickers and buttons to use in their lobby and when they tabled at community events, really to just reduce the stigma around carrying naloxone, and also distributing it as they distribute naloxone to their community members. And we received this really wonderful feedback. So it's not like It's not like an outcome you can quantify or something, like there's not a metric here. But we think that this kind of anecdotal feedback is equally, if not more important. So Morgan wrote us and said, along with the naloxone I leave out for the past 2 months, I've been refilling this little basket with Friends for Life buttons and stickers, and something magical is happening. More and more of the Narcan is getting taken by clients and non-client guests in our office. We gave out nearly double the boxes last month, and this is the spot I am refilling most frequently. It seems to me that the stickers and pins give people a greater sense of comfort and belonging, and it helps soften the stigma around overdose prevention tremendously. Last but not least, I wanted to showcase our work with ESD 105. ESD 105 is a district that covers Kittitas and Yakima counties and a portion of Grant and Klickitat counties. They came to us with a budget of $2,000 and an ask to share opioid overdose prevention messages in rural areas to break down stigma around carrying naloxone. ESD 105 has been one of our most consistent and best partners throughout the course of the campaign. The student assistant professionals at ESD 105 were instrumental in guiding our work during the primary prevention phase of work, and they have stayed engaged with us as we developed this bridge messaging for youth and young adults at higher risk. So they did a number of things. They worked with their prevention clubs in middle and high schools, where they assembled naloxone kits, and then they also assembled the zines and the peer-to-peer conversation guides and developed a custom sweatshirt. One of their community prevention specialists wrote us and said, the Narcan packs that I make, I have Friends for Life stickers in the front of the pouches with the Friends for Life card of instructions, and they're a huge hit. I usually offer the original Narcan box or one of the pouches. People unilaterally choose the pouches with lots of Friends for Life material going out into the community. The ESD also purchased bar coasters with Friends for Life imagery directing folks to the website, and they put those out in their local bars in Ellensburg and Yakima. And then also put posters up around schools. So they regularly share our prevention presentations in their middle and high school health classes. They found and have shared with us that the material has been really well received by students and staff and the administration, and helps young people get their questions answered in case of an emergency. And finally, they have been hosting Narcan trainings, handing out printed materials, and having Q&A sessions after the training. One person wrote us and said, our superintendent has allowed any teacher who wishes to have Narcan in their classrooms. I would say 90% of the staff do, with Narcan in classrooms, in the front office, and in first aid kits. So finally, to conclude the presentation, just a short plug from me that we do have support available. So if anything that you've seen in the previous slides sounds like something that you could use in your areas to reach your priority audiences, we would love to talk to you. We are doing our best to democratize this campaign. So the way that I think about it as one of the co-creative leads is like, we made it, but it belongs to you. And the more that our community feels that way and uses the materials in that way, I think the more lives that we save and the safer and healthier we all are as a state. So please contact us if there are ways that we can localize the materials with your contact information or logo. If you have an interest in customized creative like those LCD ferry terminal screens, if you want to facilitate printing or consult on implementation, or simply want access to our videos and audio PSAs, we sort of take the like improv comedy approach to this, where it's like, if you come to us with an ask, we're going to do our best to say yes and. So we're always looking to collaborate and to help you all get this campaign out into the world and into your communities. Thank you again for letting me spend this time sharing the campaign with you. If you have other questions, my email is there for you to have. And then there's a QR code and a link to our website. So please feel free to visit us there to learn more. And I will pause at this point and answer any questions there are.
All right. Let me refresh here to check the chat box. While that's refreshing, folks, hit us with any questions you have as you have them. I'll field those to Corey. To you directly, Corey, what a wonderful job. Like, that was such a great session. The comments that have come through so far, I've really just been singing your praises. Like, we've got so amazing creative videos. Corey, Friends for Life, congratulations. Beautifully done. Thank you for all your great work on this, and so on and so forth. So thank you.
Yeah.
On a personal note, like I had mentioned this to you earlier, and you mentioned that as you were getting going, for attendees as well, like I, as a public health educator with the Washington Poison Center, have used Friends for Life materials at tabling events. And they often, just anecdotally, when folks like stop by and notice them and see them, there's often this moment of like their faces light up a little bit. And I think so much of that is when we're in these spaces of overdose prevention and harm reduction, or a lot of like where I'm often plugged into for tabling is like health fairs and resource fairs. There can be this expectation that's unfortunately often reinforced of scare tactics, of this kind of doom and gloom messaging, which is all, this is where when we're talking about fentanyl, of course, there's so much to be justifiably like concerned over. And I think part of what is so refreshing to me about the Friends for Life campaign is the hope that is with it, that it's like built into the art design. And you said it earlier in your session of like the power of friendship. The moment you said that, I went, "Oh my God, yes, I love that." Like that's such a great framing. Um, Okay, so let me refresh Hoova again to see if more has come in. And we are getting a question asking if we could get your email address again.
Oh, yes. If I drop it into my chat here in Zoom, it'll show up for folks.
It should, and then I can copy paste it and put it into the Hoova chat as well. So we'll have it
Okay.
have it in all the chats.
Okay, great. Yeah, please feel free to reach out. As I said, we really do want to democratize this campaign as much as we can. So we would love to work with folks to figure out how to do that. And honestly, I shared 3 examples because I thought I was going to end up running out of time, but there are lots of examples of campaigns of folks using this campaign across the state. You know, we've had folks put it into movie theaters, put it into their community events, show up at their schools. Like they're making it work in these really beautiful and creative ways that we could have never imagined. And we think that it just strengthens the campaign more than we could ever do on our own. We're so much more powerful when we do it together.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's really like that idea is exemplified not just in how y'all work with partners, the Poison Center included. Like you've been very accommodating to us when we ask questions about could we maybe add this here or get the, and you're all like, yeah, let's make it happen. But again, also just in the art itself. I've also been, I'm in this session as a moderator for the session, and then also my public health educator brain is pinging, and I'm like jotting down notes on the zine ideas and the bar coaster ideas. Like just it's so cool and creative seeing so many ways that y'all have made this work. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna do another refresher on Hoova to see if anything's coming through. While I'm doing that, while folks might be thinking of any final questions they may have, I have what I hope isn't too hard of a question for you. If attendees leave this session with a single takeaway, whether that's an action step, a point of knowledge, an attitudinal shift, whatever, what would you like that to be?
Yeah. Wow. What a great question, Alex. Thank you. I think for us, what we want people to to do, and it sounds, I mean, maybe silly or simple, but we really want people to talk to people. So when we develop campaigns, like I said, we follow a set cycle, right, of research and messaging and creative development and implementation and evaluation. There's all these sort of formal steps. But if I could boil all that down, it's just that we talk to people over and over again. So once we've figured out who it is that we think we're trying to reach, with the research, we try to get in touch with them in terms of insight interviews, listening sessions, focus groups. And then when we develop anything based on what they've told us or what we've heard or what the research reflects, we take it back to them and talk to them again and say, does this sound right? Does this seem accurate? And then we refine from there and tweak it from there. And then when we implement it, we end up usually starting back at the beginning. So we always sort of begin and end with the same folks, and say, you know, hey, like we heard what you said, we listened, and here's what we did. And I think a lot of times what people what doesn't it doesn't feel like it should be like different or special or unique, but I think maybe it is as an experience for people on the other end, is like we really hear them when they tell us that something needs to change. We change it, knowing that they're the experts of their own lives, or that they're the experts in their fields, or that they're the experts of their communities, and that we could never, as a single group, ever hope to represent the millions of Washingtonians well unless we did that. So I guess it would just be that if you're developing material for folks, that you talk to them, and that you engage them in the process, both because it's the right thing to do, but also because it strengthens the material. It means that they're more likely to use it when they see that it reflects their feedback, and I think ultimately drives success metrics that we're lucky enough to be seeing with this campaign, but I think is easily replicable elsewhere.
Well, that was lovely. Thank you for that answer. And I love too that, you know, in that ask of like communicate, that's a two-way thing. It's talking but also listening. And I really like that you emphasize that. And I think it can be it's too easy working in this field to unintentionally not include folks that you intend to, or to initially include and then not do the follow-up. So I think it's just, yeah, your work speaks for itself. It's so apparent that you all do that follow through. All right, well, we have a few minutes left. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. So before I remind folks of the following session, of the next session after this, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with, Corey?
I don't. Alex, thank you so much for having me. Folks, thank you so much for being here. I surely do appreciate you. And just remember that anyone, including you, can be a friend for life.
Fantastic. What a great way to end this session, Corey. Thank you so much. So folks who are still on the stream, just a little plug that our next session starts at 2:30, and it's all on social media toxic trends with the Washington Poison Center's very own Dr. Katie Pappy. So please tune in for that. I hope to see you there. Otherwise, thank you so much. Have a good one, folks. Thank you,
Thanks,
Corey.
Alex. Bye-bye.
Bye.